Now, it will come as no surprise to anyone that the top 2023 employers for young people in Victoria are those, according to their employees, that tick the following boxes, i.e. meaningful work, meaningful according to said young Victorians, share their societal values and appreciation for work-life balance. But an expert has written today that this is a disaster waiting to happen because obviously there's far many more millions of young people needing work than there is millions of jobs that fit this description. It's research director at the demographics group, Simon Roostenmacher. He writes, young people are saying to themselves, why should I bust my ass for an employer that doesn't pay me much so that I can afford a good house? The whole social contract essentially between worker and employer, meaning I work for you and therefore I get a really good life, doesn't work that well anymore. So what do we do with these hordes of young people then who are looking for meaningful, according to their standards? Obviously, generations gone by, myself included, how many times have you hated a job that you're working, but you're like, this is what we do?
It's funny because I never heard my father or my grandfather talk about job satisfaction. I think that's a fairly modern thing.
It is.
My grandfather did a fairly menial task, but his satisfaction was found in that he earned a wage, which then supported his wife and his children, whereas this generation is very much inward-looking in terms of meaning. But I'd be a little bit sort of easygoing on this generation. I mean, they've found that relationships are disposable. Materialism doesn't work. We're the most prosperous generation in history and the most medicated. There's no point building a legacy because we're told there's nothing after death and we probably won't survive for that much longer anyway because of climate change. So the only place to find meaning is in my feelings, and that's where they've gone. I don't think it's good for society, but can you really blame them?
Well, and I think that's also a symptom of raising an entitled generation, a generation where everyone gets a participation medal for running in the school running race on sports day instead of just the person who runs first, second and third. You know, we've said everyone deserves the greatest that there is. Once upon a time, you acknowledged that you weren't always going to get the greatest that there is. And I find it interesting, this nexus between young people saying, well, I'm probably never going to own a home because homes are so expensive. Therefore, I'm not going to save for a home, which means I don't have to, bust my ass, as this dude says, to get the money to buy a home. So I'm just going to take my foot off the pedal a bit. But I would ask the question, as someone who bought a unit at the age of 20, if you don't bust your ass, are you perhaps missing out on the opportunity to buy something like a house? I wouldn't say this very often, but they should take some advice from Faulty Towers.
Tell him if he doesn't get on the ball, you're going to bust his ass.
Bust his?
I'll tell him.
No, I'll tell him. Leave it to me. I've got it. Bust his ass.
Now, he wanted a Waldorf salad, young people are wanting homes, but it indicates that they don't want to put in the work. And what it means, it's good for the people who do put in the work because they end up being quite successful. I just don't understand why you wouldn't go, OK, I want something, I am going to work for it.
Well, the other interesting aspect of this is the desire for meaning and purpose and how many young people want to work for a company that supports their various sort of luxury beliefs or social causes, which is interesting because the business has to make a profit in order to keep you gainfully employed, but social causes have nothing to do with profit. In fact, sometimes you see corporations doing things which actually go against their ability to make the most amount of money for their employees and shareholders.
So nowadays it does work in their favour. This article mentions that Qantas was one of the higher rating ones, and of course we know they're one of the wokest.
Right.
So whether it's Pride Month, whether it's The Voice, whether it's exactly where this airline stands on everything, but it rated really highly with people, young people, because that is what they have been taught are their values, and so they feel like they're working not just whatever it is, stamping the tickets, scanning you in, they feel like the whole wanting to share values thing is they're made then to feel like they're serving a greater purpose
It's
than
a
they
greater
would
purpose.
be
That's
if they were
exactly
doing
what
the
it is.
exact same job for a different employer.
Yeah, and that's why you have this proliferation of young people who are so invested in climate change. In the religionless world, you need something to believe in. And believing in the world and the climate is something that is bigger than you. And this is a symptom of that. They're looking for something to believe in and to work for, and if it's not religion, well, it's, you know, my values or whatever else it is.